Thank you, Andy, and thank you to all the trustees, faculty, staff, and alumni who are here today. I want to say especially thank you to those of you in the back who have been standing and are standing still even as the sun goes down. I want to thank my family and close friends and colleagues who have come from near and far to be part of this extraordinary occasion. Thank you to the wonderful musical groups, the Glee Club and the Amherst Orchestra that have performed so magnificently today. I also want to thank the representatives joining us today from other institutions, including Doshisha University in Kyoto, the Folger Shakespeare Library in Washington, and the Emily Dickinson Museum from here in Amherst. I also want to acknowledge a few special guests. Others have noted we have 3 former chairs of the Amherst College Board of Trustees in attendance today, Jide Zeitlin, Cullen Murphy, and Chuck Longsworth, and 3 former presidents of the college, Tom Garrity, Tony Marks, and Biddy Martin. Thank you, all of you, for honoring me with your presence, and thank you to those who have spoken so eloquently from the stage today about Amherst, its mission, its history, its future. I'm humbled by and grateful for the confidence you have expressed in me and in my leadership. Since June, when my appointment to the presidency was first announced, I have been answering questions both big and small. Questions like, what is my vision for the future of the liberal arts? How many purple ties do I need to own? And everything in between. One question, though, has constantly perplexed and bewildered me, something that I wonder each time I cross the quad to stand upon this hill. What does it mean to love a place? To love a place. By that, I mean something more than the aesthetic pleasure that one might take from the physical surroundings, the curve of the hills behind me, the oranges and reds that range down into the plain fields, or the simple, almost severe lines of red brick that surround the quad. As beautiful as this campus might be, that is not what I find so affecting. So often, in the smallest and most ordinary spaces on this campus, I've watched the easy motion of students walking up this hill, the way that a professor leans into a conversation, the joy of the soccer field or an orchestra stage, and I'm not ashamed to say that I have been nearly overcome with emotion. Where does that emotional response come from? On every campus, students arrive at a formative time to prepare themselves for the future. They find friends, arm themselves with knowledge, are grooved with experience, and then propelled forward into the world. But this place, this Amherst, it does something more. It holds us, suspends us in a moment of becoming, and so lives on in us long after we leave. For many students, that journey is not easy, and I know many of them, maybe many of you, have sometimes struggled to find the kind of deep affection that I'm describing. That difficulty, as uncomfortable as it may in fact be part of what makes this place so special, and ultimately our bonds so enduring. Our ties are not superficial. They demand of us self-reflection, and they lead us to ask questions about our obligations to this college and to each other. For generations, Amherst has stayed true to its mission as a liberal arts college, a place where curiosity and discovery are prized above all else, a place that values intellect and character above vocation, a place that understands that the best preparation for the world beyond our campus is, paradoxically, to be sheltered at least partially and temporarily, within it. That is an ambitious mission, and we come here because of, not in spite of, the arduous labor it requires. The idea of the liberal arts is rooted in the idea of an education that serves its students as preparation for their lives as free citizens. And at Amherst, we remain alive to that mission with all of its challenge and subtlety. Amherst believes that we have the right and even a responsibility to intellectual curiosity. And it believes simultaneously that we must cultivate that life in community with one another. No one walks the same pathway through an Amherst education, but no one walks alone. To love a place. Literature tells us that the love for a place can be powerful. It fuels the journey of Odysseus and too many novels to name. In the 17th century, doctors in Europe devised a name for an illness that soldiers contracted when they suffered from longing for their native land. They called it nostalgia. And what we know about nostalgia is that it is at once a comfort and a danger, that it can transform the love for a place into a love for a time, and in so doing, trap us in the distortions and perils of memory. Rafael Campo is a poet and a physician who graduated from Amherst in 1987 and then served later as a member of the Board of Trustees. He's penned a beautiful poem titled Toward a Theory of Memory that he first published in 2004 and then shared when he received an honorary degree from the college a few years ago. The poem begins simply, "You can never go back." Let me read a few stanzas from the first half of the poem. You can never go back. Roaring past stands of exhaust-stunted pines, we carry too much with us to where so many years ago we met in each the other. And there it is, exactly as we left it. Although perhaps the drive from the toll booths to the stately red brick buildings, home to other students now, seems shorter, or at least less promising, less an opening to the universe. Here is where we learned how time changes us. First inklings of truths relentless and impossible defining. The parsec in freshman astronomy at once exact and stretching out at a distance I could not imagine, as far as I could travel, reading Coleridge and Dickinson beneath the quad's great oaks. A place both recognizable and not. Here is where we learned how time changes us. A place both recognizable and not. You can never go back. Campo is alive to the dangers of sentimental reflection, even as he flirts with them. As someone who read both Coleridge and Dickinson and William Apis and Toni Morrison and so many others under these quads' great oaks, I feel a kinship with what Campo describes here, a feeling that tries to balance on a knife's edge the pleasures of his affection and his warning against their seduction. To love a place. To use an old metaphor, we need both the head and the heart, the intellect and the spirit, as we reckon with our love of place and how it is shaped by the past. We need, in other words, the sensibility that is at the core of a liberal education, which is relentless in its search for truth, rigorous in its evaluation of evidence, and rooted in ethical reasoning. That sensibility guides Amherst and our shared vision for the future. It is the basis of our claim to educate students who can lead meaningful lives and lead the society in which they live. During this last decade and more, this country and this campus have struggled with their love of place and the history that has shaped them. We are reckoning with old mythologies and trying to face difficult truths. We have begun to confront what it means to be a steward of land that was once inhabited by indigenous peoples, to face our own institutional complicity in American racism and other forms of discrimination, and to ask ourselves about the offensive symbols and names that we use in our everyday life. One of the great misunderstandings of our time is the mistaken belief that this kind of scrutiny, this effort to examine critically what we have inherited from our forebears, is incompatible with the love of place, whether that place is a nation or that place is a college. Affection with places and people comes with struggle, with questions and doubt. And I know that there are students on this campus who wonder still if they belong at this place, this Amherst, and graduates whose relationship with the college remains guarded and cautious. True love is made of sturdy stuff, like the great trees that surround us. It grows slowly with deep roots and wide branches to withstand all seasons over time and to thrive in even the most changeable weather. In fact, it may be that the deepest love, whether of a place or a person, requires that we are clear-eyed about its past for it to flourish in the future. Writing some 50 years ago, James Baldwin, one of the great theorists of love of the 20th century, put it this way: to accept one's past, one's history, is not the same thing as drowning in it. It is learning how to use it. An invented past can never be used. It cracks and crumbles under the pressures of life like clay in a season of drought. Baldwin believed that the past could be useful, and he believed in love. He wrote these words in his brilliant The Fire Next Time, a book that speaks to the real fear and danger that he felt as a witness to the deep and violent practices of racism across the United States and the globe. Fear and destruction that comes when some people, white people, fail to love themselves and each other for what and who they are, and who instead drown themselves in the allure of a false past. But as anyone who has been involved in a love affair knows, loving somebody for who they are instead of who we want them to be is hard. That kind of love does not come easily. And the same can be true for our college, or for that matter, a country. On a campus like this one, with so much history accumulated here over 2 centuries, if we act out of fear of losing some imagined past, we will put the future in peril. We must instead act out of something better in ourselves, the same remedy that Baldwin offered so thoughtfully throughout his life as an ardent champion for civil and human rights. And that remedy is love. Not, of course, romantic love, though it's true that many of us have been fortunate enough to find it here, but rather the love of humanity that comes from recognizing the good that each of us brings to this place, the good that actually makes this place worthy of our love. Ralph Ellison, the novelist, put it this way: the way home we seek is that condition of man's being at home in the world, which is called love, and which we term democracy. I came across this sentence in a book by Danielle Allen, the political philosopher who holds an honorary degree from Amherst and who served on our board of trustees. Allen has another name for this love. She calls it friendship. Friendship, she writes, requires recognizing in each other competing wants, desires, experiences, learning to negotiate those differences about matters that are both mundane and profound, and learning to live generously in community with one another. It is the foundation of a democratic society, and learning to find the common good in a pluralist, diverse society. My predecessor and friend, Biddy Martin, frequently spoke about the necessity and the difficulty of this kind of friendship. Biddy and I share the conviction that a liberal education brings us together to become proficient in that kind of friendship. And it's not always an easy thing to do. To learn how to extend it to our roommates and our teachers, to the staff who run the dining hall and keep our walks cleared, and most importantly, to people with whom we disagree, both on and off our campus. By practicing that kind of friendship, we learn something fundamental. We learn a new, better version of ourselves. A liberal education gives us the opportunity to come into a new relation with one another, a relation of recognition and reciprocity. We come here as imperfect, fallible students, and if we learn anything from our professors over the course of our 4 years, we learn most profoundly how little we know. We become humbled, and we become curious. And we recognize in our fellow learners a community of strivers seeking greater understanding, and that striving brings us together here to collectively forge this place, this Amherst, just as students have been doing for more than 200 years. To love a place, to love this place. We come to love this place not because of the quad or the fall leaves or the lecture hall, not because of Johnson Chapel or our first-year dorm or that office where we had so many long conversations with our thesis advisor. We come to love this place because this love is where we feel something in ourselves that seems in woefully short supply right now. We feel optimism. We feel the possibility of becoming, of growth, of stumbling forward into a better future for ourselves and for our world. 90 years ago, one of Amherst's great presidents, Alexander Meiklejohn, observed, "The present mood of America seems to me, in a very unusual degree, one of such revealing self-condemnation. In many ways, we are obsessed by the fear of having betrayed ourselves." To me, Meiklejohn's words ring as true today as they did when he wrote them in the depths of the Great Depression. Self-condemnation, the fear of having betrayed ourselves, that is a recipe for a society that is narrow, small, and cruel. We are here in this place, this Amherst, because we embrace a different vision of the world, a vision rooted in the capacity of people to change, to find in one another what is good, to learn about the world beyond themselves, and to advance through curiosity, discovery, inquiry. We come to this place because we believe that small places can make a large difference in the world. We come to love this place when we discover something truly fundamental, that this small place, this Amherst, can somehow make the world almost infinitely larger for all of those who walk its halls and its hills. And our love endures because we know that the future can be greater than the past. As I conclude, I'd like to take just a moment to address directly the current students who are with us today, at least those of them who are still awake. This place, this Amherst, it's yours now. You may come to love it in the way that I've described, or you may not. And love of that kind might be the farthest thing from your mind as you worry about the challenges ahead of you. Whether the exams that you face at the end of the semester, the question of what path you'll pursue after you graduate, that playoff game tomorrow, or how you will contribute to addressing the enormous problems of our time. We keep using the phrase liberal arts education as though it were a static thing, a noun, but it's really a verb, an action. And it is an action that requires a certain kind of faith. You must believe in the ability of your professors to provide you with what you need for the future. You must believe in your fellow students and be willing to risk friendship and fellowship with them. But most of all, you must have a belief in your own potential to learn, to grow, to make mistakes, to take chances, to be vulnerable, and ultimately to contribute to the common good. That is a lot. But look around you. Here in this place today, you can see graduates, professors, trustees, distinguished visitors, and they are all here today. All of these people, not because they have faith in me, but because they have faith in you. And during the last 3 months, in every conversation that I've had with you, whether walking across the quad or talking across a table in Val, I have been reminded that you deserve their trust, their friendship, their love. No matter what else you take away from today, I hope that you remember how many people are behind you and beside you and who believe in you. And to you, I say, most of all, what a privilege it is to be your president. Thank you.